Hi, this is David Davis from ActualTech Media. We're live here at VMworld, and I'm excited to be joined by Mr. Ruben Spruijt. He's the field CTO for Frame. How you doing, Ruben?
Good.
Thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks.
So I'm really excited about Frame, I have to admit. I bet a lot of people out there might have never heard about it, just like I had never heard about it just a couple days ago. And now I'm really excited to use it. So first, why don't you just tell us who is Frame and what do you do?
Yeah, well, Frame, what we do as a company, maybe start with that. We bring Windows applications running on cloud to any browser, anywhere. So that's what we do. So any software running in a browser. And Frame is 5 years old, so we are a pretty young company. First 2.5 years in stealth mode. And then after 2 years, especially in the ISVs, with ISVs like Adobe and Autodesk, Champs-Élysées, these kind of high-end applications. A lot of these ISVs are using Frame as platform to run their high-end applications with GPUs and to deliver that application to, well, their consumers, their business consumers, via a browser. We can integrate that fully into a workflow as well, but simply set in a browser. So you run your app in a browser, click, bam, go, simple.
In fact, I tried it myself last night. I signed up, put in my email, got an email, clicked on it. In my web browser right there was a list of Windows applications. I'm a Mac user, so in my Mac Chrome browser, here are Windows applications. I clicked on PowerPoint for Windows, just start it up, boom.
Yeah. It's all about simple. So we started 5 years ago with two things in mind. It runs on cloud, so public cloud. In the early days it was Amazon, AWS. Right now it's Amazon and Microsoft with Azure, and with GPU in the early days. And 5 years ago, like public cloud and GPU was not so common as it is today. So we started our platform. Frame is actually a platform with like 8 components. Some of them are like remoting protocol, user experience with all these kind of things combined. Hiding the complexity from an infrastructure as a service perspective on the Azure side or Amazon side, billing and reporting, multi-tenancy, authorization, two-factor authorization, integrate with Google or with Microsoft AD or with VMware Identity Manager as an example. So it really is a platform. And as an end user, as you've witnessed last night, you don't see all this complexity.
Yeah.
That's what we hide. But just click, start, run, and that's really powerful.
So it's really enterprise grade. I mean, there's all these enterprise grade features in the background. Yeah. But for end users like me, just boom, you get the application you need, which is what an end user really wants.
Yeah. But so, and also the admin side, just to onboard an app, like add a new application to your application set, that is simple as well. If you have some time, I'm happy to demonstrate that.
Yeah.
If you're like a big service provider and you want to create your own tenants, that's a different set of admin tasks. That is simple as well. So it's all started with these things in mind, and that's completely different than. Well, my background is end user computing, as you know. So I know a lot of other solutions in this space as well, and they have a different background. It's not, and also there are pros and cons with that as well. So.
Right. I mean, you've heard the phrase, is this the year of VDI for companies? And it hasn't been, because VDI is not always easy, and it's not always inexpensive. Oh. So, I'm kind of wondering, maybe it's the year of Frame.
Would be great.
Yeah.
I think, to be realistic, we are a smaller company, but still doing exciting things, and I'm really excited as well to be part of Frame team. What I see, so will there be a year of VDI? No, there isn't. Right. And that, well, as you mentioned earlier, like cost, the complexity, and user experience are the 3 major challenges in historically VDI and application remoting on-prem. I truly believe, and that's what I see as well, that more and more customers are interested in the app itself. So, okay, how can I get access to my apps? Maybe I run on Chromebook or a Windows 10 device, and I run web apps or like mobile apps on that device. Yeah. And some of them are also Windows apps, because that's what I need to get stuff done in my day-to-day job. And that's where application remoting and Frame, as an example, really makes a ton of sense.
Excellent. So before we jump into the demo, I wanted to ask you, I mean, we're here at VMworld. I know that Frame had a big VMware-related announcement. You want to talk about that briefly?
Sure. So VMware announced indeed a solution called Workspace ONE App Express. And the name App Express says it all. It's about how do I get simple apps to my Horizon One environment. So you could ask, why did VMware team up with Frame? I truly believe that it's all about use cases, and we add an additional use case to their platform Horizon One. So we integrate with Identity Manager, and then we publish the app, the application, the Frame application is integrated also in the Horizon One interface. So from an end user perspective, there are some hints where you see Frame, but it actually is it's a VMware proposition where we deliver services to VMware customers.
So for VMware customers using Workspace ONE,
Yes.
they click on an application that might be actually running in Frame and
Yes.
not really even realize it.
Yes.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
So it's all
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff from a tech perspective behind that, but that's all hidden, so it's simple. And also onboarding an application. So suppose maybe it's an education customer or not education, doesn't matter what kind of scenario it is, but you want to have like 5, maybe 10, or 2 standalone-ish apps delivered to your Chromebook, to your Windows 10 device, or maybe to your unmanaged device in general. You can onboard the apps really simple yourself, and hopefully you have some time to demonstrate that. And that's also the power. So the end user side is very powerful, simple, integrate with Identity Manager, but also the onboarding part of new applications is very simple as well. And both are important to deliver a great user experience.
Yeah, and I love that it doesn't have to be just a certain set of apps. I mean, I tried at some point a few years back, kind of a desktop in the cloud, and it was like you get these 6 applications, but that's not the real world. People don't just need those standard 6 apps.
Yeah, I agree.
And so with Frame, enterprises
There
can...
are a lot of also crazy apps. Some apps use 60 frames per second, like GIS type of application, like Google Earth, but then even more sophisticated than Google Earth type of application, as an example. They run on Frame as well. These type of applications use GPUs or multiple GPUs to get that horsepower. Some applications don't need a GPU, so we can run without GPU as well.
So the power of the GPU in the cloud is that graphics can now be possible. High-end graphics can be possible in this virtual desktop that's running in the cloud. These applications that really never before were VDI possible are now possible.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
So so there are 2 angles of the GPU. So we use the GPU for encoding our own remoting protocol, which is based on 8264. And also the GPU is being used for OpenGL or DirectX, which is needed for these applications. So the application uses a GPU as well.
Ah.
So there are 2 angles of the GPU.
Using
For the remoting
GPU.
protocol and for the app with the related frameworks, OpenGL as an example.
So the GPUs in the cloud, even if the person's using Windows Paint, those GPUs are accelerating the performance of the streaming application.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Yep.
And then I know can you educate the audience a little bit on the different editions of Frame?
Sure. So historically, Frame started with, like 5 years ago, built a product, and started with the ISVs, the independent software vendors like Adobe and Autodesk as an example. These type of customers, for instance, utility-based model. I want to run Photoshop for these type of customers, certain time per month or certain time per week. So that's a utility-based model. For enterprises, that's sometimes a different model. So there's also an enterprise model where we can help. And there's like a personal edition as well. So if your mom or grandmom or wants to run certain apps in Frame, you can swipe the credit card, pay X, and then can use Frame as well. So there are 3 models. So the ISV, enterprise, and personal model. To make it simple. And we are flexible as well. So sometimes utility-based, Frame utility-based, and Amazon utility-based makes sense. Sometimes Frame named user or concurrent user makes more sense. So it really depends on use case. We have a customer, for instance, in education. They're using Frame for, I think, 140,000 students It's a yearbook. I think that's more a US thing than a European thing. But they use that application. There's a seasonality as well, so they use it for the whole year. But certain like end of school season, you see a huge spike in usage as well, and that's the benefit of cloud. It's elastic.
Yeah.
It's simple, and you pay for what you use, and that's what we do.
Awesome.
When we talk about pay for use, it is also important to make sure that when you don't use it, that you don't pay for it, right? So we developed our own technology to warm start, cold start, to do smart things, to have cost control, but also to have a great user experience. When the user clicks on the app, that the app is instant available, or resuming apps and the correlated VM when you don't use it for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, because it's a waste of money. Although it's like cents or maybe an hour, $1 per hour, but still it stacks up when you do nothing, and it's just a waste of money. So we have a lot of intelligence built for Amazon and Azure to have cost control with our platform.
Very nice.
Yep.
So you guys are making cloud desktops, to me, finally possible by solving all these different problems that have been problematic, if you will, in the past.
Yep.
So.
And cloud desktops is an interesting word as well, because I'm not sure if the word desktop is the right word to use, because yes, we can publish a desktop, and it sometimes makes sense to have a Windows desktop in a browser. But for many customers, it's more about the app than a desktop. And of course, we know from a tech perspective, underneath a ton of other stuff is needed, like profiles and these kind of things. But it's more about the app than a desktop.
Yeah, and that's a great point. When I used Frame, I was presented with a list of applications I could run, and that's really what end users need. They don't need to go to Start and browse through all these infinite Windows possibilities. They just need their applications and need to run them fast.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at the demo.
Sure. So what I have in front of me is the Launchpad. Launchpad is, I think, what you used yesterday night as well. This is the interface where you can. This is an interface, not the only interface, where you can launch your applications.
Okay.
So Launchpad is a way to to launch the apps. I will start an app right away. But what I can do as well is create a link and integrate this application specific in your own web interface.
Oh, really?
Or use the Frame API, and I'm not a developer, so don't ask me tough questions on that one, but use the Frame API and really integrate the app and the Frame platform in the workflow of, in your own workflow. So we have 3 ways of delivering this app. The Launchpad, like you've seen right now, is the simple one.
So I could have a bookmark to run PowerPoint for Windows, and it would just pop up.
Could be, But you need to authenticate, or normally you need to authenticate. We can do it anonymous as well, but
Okay.
So this is actually like a simple app, Google Earth. Well, it's not so simple. It's still GPUs being used.
Right.
Let's see if I can give you a tour. Let's see, just open. I think I created a Dutch tour, so we'll educate on the Netherlands as well. These are the Netherlands.
Excellent.
But it is really smooth. It's our own remoting protocol. Right now, I'm using Amazon AWS. I set up this tenant. I will show what I did later.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of other info here as well. You see over here, hey, what is network bandwidth? We calculate that. So you have hey, my network bandwidth is maybe not so optimal. Hey, that's why my performance is maybe not so great. Like the same as you see on your iPhone. Hey, your cellular coverage is one sign instead of 5. You see it right now. You see it changing. You see?
And this is performing fantastic. I mean, it's running in AWS. It's streaming down to us over the internet, and it's even going over the hotel Wi-Fi at VMworld. So it's a huge accomplishment here.
You see like latency here. You see distance to server. So that's part of a launcher in the Launchpad. Okay. I also can start if I would like to start other apps. So we have our own. I wouldn't say start menu, but maybe you want to start. Just a Frame Explorer as a simple example. But also it's interesting, that's tough to demonstrate right now because it's just one machine. I can share my session as well. So if you're designing a new engine and you want to collaborate with someone else in a different location, you can just share a session. You copy the link, send it to someone else, and he will see the same things that you see as well.
Oh, that's very nice for support, for training.
Yep. Classrooms. We'll discuss classrooms.
Classroom, use cases.
Ton of,
lab environments. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's
And so this is the end user perspective, and then of course there's also the administrator perspective, right? Where they can add applications, administer their users, set up authentication sources, monitor billing and consumption and usage.
Yep. So that's a good point. Good segue into the more admin side of it. So this is simple and it's fluid. It's fast. You can try it as well if you go to Frame. So fra.me. Not frame.com, but fra.me.
Right, fra.me.
Yep, then you can, as you did last night, you can just request access and you have certain credits, certain time to run apps and play around with it. That's a great starting point. I will switch to the admin side of this tenant. You see here, frame AWS US admin. Spruijt.com. That's my R&D setup.
Okay.
So this is for me the hint that this is AWS, and I selected the region US or certain region in the US. So this is my my customer, my tenant. I can go to dashboard, like you can see here, and this is more like the admin view for this this tenant.
Okay.
These are all the apps available in my my environment. And I also have access to a sandbox. And sandbox is like a sort of master template or master image, give it a name. Golden image,
yeah.
So I can open this this desktop. I didn't prep, but let's see if it works. And what I can do if I have access to this desktop, I can make changes, like fonts. We discussed that prior to the recording. Install fonts, install apps, these kind of things.
So now you're like a VDI administrator here, but yet you didn't have to buy servers, buy storage, buy VDI licenses, and all that.
Nope. So this is my sandbox right now, and if I install an app, we automatically detect, hey, a new app is installed, and ask 3 questions. Do you want to publish this app in the frame, in your frame environment, so that end users can use the app? I can simulate that. As a simple example, I'll use like Paint. If I right-click, not this one. Interesting. Let's just install an app, see how it works. Let's see, what shall we download?
So here you're creating a Windows desktop for your end users as the administrator. You can install whatever Windows apps. I mean, a lot of companies, they have a whole long list of their own custom Windows applications.
You can edit, yeah.
So you can bring your own licenses.
You see a desktop right now because that is the view of the sandbox, the view of the golden image.
Okay. And what about
this is what I meant. So you get a couple of messages, and one of the messages is, do you want to onboard the app? And if I click yes, by now I won't do it. But if you click yes, the app itself is automatically like published into my environment, and therefore I can launch it in my launchpad as well, as an example.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, what about like shared files? Like companies who have shared files, they need access to those files.
Yeah. Did you see it by coincidence, or?
No, I'm thinking.
Because that is simple. What you see here in the bottom. So Dropbox, Google Drive, and Box. These are the 3 I enabled as an Uber admin. What I can do is I can use my credentials, and I can mount Dropbox, Google Drive, and Box inside my environment, inside the app. Which means that if I do that, and I click on, for instance, like Adobe Reader, File, Open, I see, for instance, in G Drive, like a drive at a G, which is directly connected to my Google Drive.
Oh, nice.
And that Google Drive syncs with my mobile devices. So if I add a new like PDF to my Google Drive, I can add it. I can open it as well in the Adobe Reader, as you can see here.
So you have a method for accessing shared files between all these desktops that the end users might be using, and then those files are protected by Dropbox for Business or whoever it might be.
So as I mentioned earlier, so Frame is much more a platform, and one of the segments in the platform is called like storage. It's personal storage, as you can see here, enterprise file sharing and synchronization type solutions like Dropbox and Google Drive and so on. But also connection to, for instance, Panzura. Panzura is being used in like architectural and construction and engineering firms a lot. That's why I see them a lot. And it's like creating distributed sort of file system across locations with cloud and on-prem in mind. So if someone in Shanghai opens a big file in Autodesk Revit, someone in New York wants to exit it as well, want to collaborate. There's file locking on that level. So we integrate with Panjura. We have a couple of customers using Frame and Panjura. So that's also an angle where storage makes a ton of sense.
So it's a lot more than just Google Drive. I mean, there's other storage integrations for enterprises.
Yep. So that's like, this is this very simple admin interface. When you look at Horizon 1 App Express, this is actually what's being used as well. So you get access to the sandbox, to the golden image. You make your changes. These changes are visible in the like admin view in this admin view. If I add an app, you will see it here. Hey, a new app is available. I click publish, and here you go. That's how it works. There's much more. There's much more stuff under the covers, but it's good to if you click on settings, for instance. There's what kind of instance do I use? Is it a CPU or GPU? How many RAM? These kind of things. We hide that complexity, where you can select it here as well. Maybe you want to limit the amount of time from a session, but also want to create, hey, I always want to have 5 machines up and running in case someone wants to exit the app. It's like, bam, there. And I want a maximum like of 100 apps. Or maybe I want to set this to 0. That's normal my setup in my R&D environment, because that will trim down the cost, because no VM is running with the apps. Unless I access an app, then you get a message in the screen like, hey, wait 2 minutes, we are starting up the VM and registering the VM in our control plane, these kind of things, before you can start the app. That is pure from a cost perspective.
Very nice.
And then, of course, the analytics part. Not so much is happening in this demo account, but you can see what your team members are what team members are using, what the elasticity is, how much time is being used with certain apps. All these kind of things is visible here. What's also interesting to see, if you click on back to the Launchpad, click on team settings, I can add very simple other team members. You will see a community friend, Rory, has already access into this environment. If I click here and add your credentials, or add someone's credentials, you'll get an email like you got yesterday, and you instantly get access, like within 30 seconds, 20 seconds, to this environment with these apps, with these settings. So it's really, really simple and powerful as well. I knew about the technology, otherwise I wouldn't join Frame a couple of months ago. But there's so many, sometimes small things, which really impress me in a very positive way. As an example, I can show that as well. I go to the Frame Uber admin mode, which means I see all the customers being served by Frame. But what I can do, I can also impersonate as an Uber Frame admin to a customer and see what is happening and these kind of things. But if I look at this this environment, as a simple example, which is handy, there's a lot of settings you can set as an admin. Normally you don't do this for the user, but as an Uber admin you can. And you can also clone the sandbox, so clone the environment I created with all my apps, and say, okay, I want to clone this sandbox, this golden image, from Amazon to Azure, or from Azure region A to region B.
Oh, nice.
And that saves a ton of time as well. And the same applies for utility service. We didn't talk about that, but quite often you have your own utility service as well, which can be a license server or a database server or a file server or whatever kind of server connected with these apps.
Right, because these applications, I mean, enterprises have more than just a local client application. There's there's servers that make them possible.
And they can run in public cloud as well, or in AWS or in Azure. They can run on-prem as well. If that's the case, then we need to create a network connection between our environment, our VPC, to the customer's environment. Okay. But sometimes, quite often, people run their apps and their data in public cloud, and they need, sometimes an utility server for that. So we can add that. Enable backups, as an example, is a good one as well. You can see here the options as well. So enable utility server, that adds a new tab, which gives me desktop access to the utility server, so I can install the license server or whatever I would like to do. Okay. From the same interface we have, so there's no additional tooling needed for that. Yeah, it's a sophisticated platform. That was my point for talking about the cloning sandbox. I was setting up an environment in Azure, spent like half a day installing all kinds of crazy apps. I thought, well, wouldn't be creative if I just can copy this sandbox to another region? That will save me half a day of work.
Yeah.
And that function is just part of the solution. There are many of that simple examples, which makes life much easier. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, the more I learn about Frame, the more I'm impressed. I hope that everyone out there will give it a try. Just like I did, go to fra.me and check out Frame. Thanks so much for your time today, Ruben.
Yeah, thanks. Being here. Thanks.